Is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 284. Can you believe it? Getting ever closer to 300, and we're into our fifth year of doing these podcasts. But today I've got an amazing guest on this special Valentine's Day Wrestling with Johners, I suppose you could say. We're kind of one day early, but let's say any day you can celebrate love and Valentine's. But today I'm joined by presenter, commentator, ring announcer, influencer, model, and all-round fantastic human being. One of the busiest people I know in the industry, the wonderful SoCal Val. Val, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and happy SoCal Valentine's Day. See what I did there?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
but it's wonderful to have you on the show. And I know that we've got to know each other a little bit over the last year or so, because you've jumped on the Progress Hype show before with myself and Mike. So it's been a pleasure doing that with you and seeing you at the shows. But if you want to get in touch with SoCal Val, we are live across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can do. Just send us your questions using your chosen device. They'll ping through to us, and we'll do our very best to bring them up on screen and answer them all during the course of this conversation. We've already had questions come through before we go live, and I think there's one or two that's already dropped in already, so we'll have a look at those shortly. But first of all, Val, let's say one of the busiest people in the industry that I know. But before we talk about wrestling, you've recently got back from, I think it's Baltimore Celeb Con, is that right? Or Celeb Fest?
That is right, like Baltimore Celeb Fest 6. Yes, I was right back and very young. It was fun. And every time I go to America, like I make the mistake. I mean, it's a great thing for fans, but for me, when I go home, which home for me is Orlando, Florida, that's where I've lived most of my life. I always go, okay, so I'm going to go home and not work. And then I go, oh, well, there's a Celeb Fest, or there's a big event in New York or whatever. And whenever I put feelers out or tell people that I'm going to be there, I end up getting like a great booking. But I think, I'm not in the US anymore much. So I always break up my trip with an appearance or two, or a show or two. And that one was really, really fun. A big shout out to Sorrentino Promotions for having me. And there was a great show. Ric Flair was there. I got to see him. I hadn't seen him in a while. He's always one of my favorites to see. Gail Kim, Christy Hemme were there. Huge lineup of people. And I was with Ryback, who I didn't know at all and is so nice. And Fred Rosser, Darren Young, formerly known as. And he was on GAWTV with us, Grown Ass Women TV every Wednesday at 10 p.m. in the UK, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Anywho, GAWTV, he'd been on our show before, and he was really, really nice. And in person, he was just lovely. So I was in really good company, and to see the fans it's always like nice for me to know that I'm still appreciated in the States, because living here, I don't get home as much as I used to. So it's always really special for that reason. Yeah.
And like you say, a great way to connect with the fans while you're out there. I don't know if you were signing or whether you was just hosting, but also a great way to catch up with old friends as well. You mentioned one or two there, but like I say, I suppose when you go to these conventions and these celeb fests all over the world or even over the UK, you do get a chance to catch up with people you haven't seen in a while.
That's really the most fun. Like it's really a reunion. Like I saw James Storm, like who I jokingly refer to as my road husband, because when we were on house shows, he and I would very often travel together. And like Christy and Gail were there. I got to see Scott D'Amore this trip as well. So like kind of the core, and that's why we always say TNA. Yes, I know it's Impact Wrestling, but the old grizzled ones like me, I always call it TNA.
I always call it TNA. Yeah, fall into that habit.
Myself. Yeah, I know. We had, spoiler alert, we have a TNA Bully Ray. Coming to GAWTV, there's an exclusive for this episode, Johners. He and I were talking about the fact that we always call it TNA. It just comes out, it flies out of your mouth because we're so used to doing it. But the reunion aspect of going to signings is probably, other than the fans, is really, really fun for me, because it's people that, I grew up in that company. I was there for 9 years. So the core TNA people being around was hilarious. Who I marked out for? And I was like, oh my God, I hadn't seen him in years. I haven't seen him at signings. Freaking Brian Kendrick. Spanky was there.
Wow.
And I was like, is that Brian Kendrick? You would have thought like Bruce Willis walked. I was like, oh my God, because I hadn't seen him in ages. And people you see all the time, but he was not someone that I see on that circuit. So that was really fun to see him.
Yeah, and like I say, doing my research, flicking through your Instagram, I noticed a few things where you've been hosting and doing interviews on stage there with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I nearly said Rob Van Damme for a second there, but Jean-Claude Van Damme,
wrestling, dude.
Dolph Lundgren for the new Universal Soldier, and then go back. I think this is Liverpool Comic Con with the biggest and the best names in entertainment and Hollywood. And like I say, a great opportunity. And your life, your career, your hosting skills is so much more than just pro wrestling. I think a lot of people that only know you for wrestling might not know that.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much because I work really hard to kind of be seen as like a freelance host, presenter, they say more in the UK. And with Comic Cons, it's interesting because everyone goes like, people say, how did you get to do that? I'd love to do that. And I'm like, well, I didn't just, like with wrestling, I just really wanted to be in it and just ingratiated myself, made tapes and things. With that, I don't even know how anyone would become a host. The way that I became a host was I came over to the UK doing signings for promotions, and then with Monopoly events and different companies. Now I'm exclusive to Monopoly events as a host here in the UK. Monopoly does, I think we're doing like 13 to 15 shows per year. We're doing For the Love of Wrestling, end of April. So all the wrestling fans that are watching, please come out. It's going to be in Manchester, For the Love of Wrestling.co.uk. Monopoly events, just search for Monopoly events, you'll find it. But, being a person who was just signing as a guest, I'm just sitting there signing autographs, taking photos. I kept doing videos and social media videos. And I said, can I do some more like promoting of your Comic Cons? And I'd love to be kind of like your roving reporter and, hey guys, here's what we have. Here's our vendors today. I just love hosting. I wanted to be a host more than a person who just sits there and signs. And to be honest, that gets a little old, right? You're sitting there meeting people. But when they let me be a host, I now, host exclusively for them all of the Comic Cons this year I'll be at, excluding the Liverpool one because I'll be in LA for Mania weekend. But, I'm meeting people from, sometimes I meet people that I haven't followed as much of, you can't have seen everything. I can't have seen every TV show, every movie, but people from, for example, Harry Potter, Luke Evans that you just showed, I'm a huge fan of, people from Cobra Kai, some of these things, Star Wars, the things that I'm really interested in. And I've gotten to meet the people like Brendan Fraser was with, shout out to Showmasters who had me host for Brendan Fraser. These are like childhood heroes and it's nothing to do with wrestling, which is really, really refreshing and fun for me. So that's a really, really cool gig that I don't think a lot of people realize that I do. They'll see me at a Comic Con, but they don't really realize that I'm the host that you see and hear all day long. And it's really, really thrilling. The next one we have, because we are live, which is awesome, is with Monopoly Events, and it's in Aberdeen. I believe it's March 18th and 19th. And I'll be hosting for Leah Thompson, Rufio, like so many cool nostalgic names are there. So I'm excited.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And we've already had somebody reach out to us now. Richard Pugh watching us via YouTube. Thank you, Richard, for watching. Evening all. Love to Val and Johners. And Richard has sent another question, which I'll read out a bit later on. But speaking of Comic Cons and conventions and I'm gonna make all of your kind of female fans jealous here, and maybe some guys, because I think it was at Wales Comic Con you met this gentleman here, didn't you, John Cena? And I know that John, you met him way back, but getting to meet John Cena again, unless that's a cardboard cutout, that's a pretty impressive and say Hollywood now, let's say 16-time WWE champion, and let's say somebody you know a little bit about.
You know what? He's so famous at this point that it truly looks like I'm standing with a cardboard cutout. That's how you know you're super.
I did have to double check. I did have to a double take there, but no, right? It's the real deal. That's the
real guy. And I'll tell you what. So there's a photo that's, and I took. I thank God for Twitter. I said there's a photo of he and I when I was about, I think 17, and I was backstage my first time at WWE, nervous as heck, trying to kind of be looked at and seen and audition and things, and they put us in a backstage promo, and with Stephanie McMahon directing it, who's my personal Jesus. So, oh my God. And then Cena was, he was pretty popular even back then because he had the Chain Gang Hottie shirts. That's what we were advertising. And we took photos and did a commercial with him. I don't know where that ended up, by the way, but there was a photo, and he signed one of the shirts for me and was like, would you girls like more shirts? Like, take one for your friends, like the nicest guy ever. And I was like, whoa. Even back then he was very famous. You fast forward to now, that was last year around the summer. This guy is possibly nicer and more, if that was even possible. And he said to me, and he follows me on Twitter, but he follows a lot of people. I was like, he wouldn't remember. And he said to me, and I swear, I was like, am I dreaming? He said, Val, he goes, how have you been? He goes, I remember meeting you. And he goes, I just wanted to say, and he took my hand and said, I wanted to say thank you for your contributions to the business. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I know all about your career. I know all about your podcast and how hard you work. And I want to say thank you. I'm going to cry even thinking about it. And I go, but you're John Cena. Like, can I say thank you? Like, you're amazing. And he was like, oh, no. The coolest guy ever. I mean, and we just kept chatting. And I had heard the people from Monopoly say he wasn't really supposed to do a panel. It is on YouTube, by the way, if you want to have a look. And he comes, he lets a fan come up and dance with him and stuff. And somebody said he wasn't supposed to do a panel. And he goes, oh, Val's here. Oh, I'm in good hands with Val. I'll do it. And I was like, that is a huge compliment. I could not. And it's funny because like he's so famous, maybe because I met him or he's a wrestler. It felt like he was an old friend. We had talks about like Tampa and I'm like, you still in Tampa? Nicest guy ever.
Yeah. But I think that people within the wrestling industry, they kind of, they look after their own, don't they? You're kind of part of that community, part of that family. So that's what he was doing. He was looking after his own.
Isn't that cool? And everyone was like, oh, sure. I'm like, I'm telling you. And it wasn't even like a disingenuous kind of like, oh, yeah. Dude either did his homework or has an assistant to do it for him because I was like, how do you know about GAWTV? He even said GAWTV. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. But I only saw him once and I was in New Orleans for WrestleMania 2018.
Okay.
And he was there. I think they were doing a parade of the superstars the day before WrestleMania and he was throwing out shirts and then he got off the bus into his limo and he kind of brushed past me. But the guy was just super nice and what a fantastic human being. We've had Michael Turner watching us on YouTube. So hi Michael. Hello SoCal Val, and he follows it up with a question: when are you coming back to Comic Cons in North Carolina?
Ooh,
so I don't know if you've been to one in North Carolina. However, Michael's looking forward to seeing you next time there's one on. But any plans, or would you like to go back to North Carolina soon?
I certainly would. And thank you, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Lots of love. I did one in Fayetteville a year or two ago. And I actually used to live in High Point, North Carolina. So like I miss the barbecue. I love North Carolina. I'll be honest, you don't want to generalize, but North Carolina has some of the, I feel like my accent comes back when I say North Carolina. Has some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I don't have plans to go to North Carolina yet. I will tell you that my U.S. plans consist of Los Angeles for WrestleCon and for WrestleMania, which we'll get into later. Yeah. And then the following week after that, I believe it's April 8th and 9th, with Scott Hewlett Promotions. I'll also be on his podcast March 11th. I will be in Indianapolis. So those are the only two U.S. ones that I've confirmed that I can say I'm definitely going to be on. But I would love to go back to North Carolina. There's a huge one around Thanksgiving, and I've done it before. It's so good. It's called WrestleCade. And if I could make that work this year, I would love to. So, Michael, I hope to see you there if I can make it.
Yeah, Michael, if you're going to be in Los Angeles for WrestleMania, go and see Val at WrestleCon and go and say hi and say that you had your question read out on Wrestling with Johners. But Val, I want your help with this next segment, and you'll understand why when I bring it up. And let's bring up this graphic here. And it's Progress presents Wrestle Tours. And of course, Progress and Wrestle Tours have joined forces. And more recently, they are selling VIP Suite tickets for WrestleMania, both nights, the 1st and the 2nd of April, 2023. And let's say there's a special price for both UK, Great British wrestling fans that are looking to take part in this offer, and US fans as well. And all the details running along the bottom of the screen there. But Val, you're going to be in Los Angeles for WrestleMania, April 1st and 2nd. You're going to be there. You're going to be in the VIP suite, I understand. But what can you tell us about this? Because there's loads you can get for your money. Obviously, 2 nights for special guests, food and drink included, special access as well in the VIP entrance, and of course getting to meet SoCal Val.
Well, first of all, I always say to every fan that's never been to a WrestleMania, there is nothing like experiencing WrestleMania live. And let me tell you something else. There is nothing like the deal that you're getting from Wrestle Tours. I saw this and in all honesty, Johners, I was like, that price is coconuts. It's crazy because I know as a fan how much it costs to go, even back in the day when I wanted to go as a fan. Now it's, double, triple in price. And the fact that they're doing this whole all-encompassing fun tour to experience WrestleMania is great. But you know what's great about it too is that, of course, you'll have superstar appearances. Obviously, Lana Austin, our Progress Wrestling Women's Champion, will be there. Lee McAteer, the whole gang's going to be there, which is great. But you know what the best part of it is making the friends that you're going to make when you go with Wrestle Tours to WrestleMania, because that entire weekend is so much fun and it's traveling together. It's the camaraderie. I, as a fan, used to go to Raw, SmackDown, WrestleMania, pay-per-views all the time by myself from like 14 years old onwards. And I was by myself, young girl. And you know what? Wow. The best part of it was looking around me, and we all had that common interest, that shared interest of professional wrestling. We got the same lingo, we spoke the same language, and you make friends for life. And that's really what the Wrestle Tours experience is about. I will also say, I'm going to drop a little exclusive here for you, Johners. I can't reveal all because we're close, and I know that everyone watching will keep it between us. There is something a brewing for the Sunday that involves GAWTV. So if you haven't already gotten your tickets, all will be revealed soon, but the Sunday especially I'm looking forward to, because there will be some interesting additions. We're going to up the ante, and it's going to be a grown-ass women TV good time. That's all I can say.
Hell yes.
I'm telling you right now. If it was ever like, oh, I'm not so sure, maybe I'll do it next year. No. Also, this is LA. This is SoCal. This is Hollywood. This is actually where I saw my first WrestleMania ever, WrestleMania 21. And to me, the WrestleMania that you want to see, the biggest that's ever going to go, is in Hollywood. Everything's bigger in Hollywood, and this is going to be the one that you don't want to miss. Mark my words.
SoFi Stadium is going to be packed both nights. So I'm going to bring up that graphic one more time. And if you're over in the UK, you can take advantage of this VIP Suite ticket exclusive for the 1st and 2nd of April with SoCal Val and all the Progress stars, and maybe Gore TV on the Sunday. And it's just $8.99 for UK, for people traveling from the UK, $8.99. And to take advantage of that, all you've got to do is go to, and it's just coming along the bottom of the screen there, bit.ly/progress. Progress GBP, Great British Pounds, of course. And for our American fans, if you want to take advantage of this, 2 nights in the VIP Suite with all the Progress guys, SoCal Val, Lana Austin, and Gore TV, it's going to be $1,099, and it is simply bit.ly/progress USD, US dollars. So
make sure. I'm not even being funny. I'm not trying to sit here and like, I'm a frugal girl. That price is probably what people are paying for one night of WrestleMania. That's not the travel. That's, I mean, it's a crazy price. And again,
it's a great deal.
What you're really buying with that insanely low price, you're buying memories. I remember every single Mania I've been to. I've been so lucky to go to so many. I remember every single Mania I went to, every friend that I made, every emotional response to entrances and amazing, match results. That's what you're buying, and are memories that are going to last forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And a few of the people that have got in touch, Jamie Dwyer saying evening all.
I know him. Hi, Jamie.
There we go. So, Jamie, thank you for dropping onto the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you for participating. Send us your questions. Jamie. Yeah. It's a fun question. We're going to talk about Progress in a minute, but it's a fun question. Front Bum Jones. Now, that's an interesting handle, if ever I've heard one, via YouTube. If Gene Money had to fight 100 puppies, who would win? So from an interesting handle on YouTube to an interesting question there. I didn't mean to make you spit out your water there. But it just
hello, Alan. First of all, that's my husband sending that question. Thank you.
This could be a match at G Money's Daft Lad Emporium, if ever I've seen one. G Money against 100 puppies.
I hope you're coming, Johners. Please be our special guest, because this show, I mean, that actually could happen. If he had to fight 100 puppies, who would win? The fans, I suppose. That 100%. Show, honestly, like, listen, Progress becomes, certain matches becomes very serious and it's very emotional. But this show is just going to be a free-for-all. I have no flipping idea what to expect. No idea. And that's why I'm actually excited for it. All I know is I told him yesterday at the show that I'm planning some sort of a Dalmatian-themed outfit. I don't know yet. Could be a onesie. Either way, I am Gene Money's biggest fan. I know FBJ, Front Bum Jones, is also a huge fan of Gene. I feel like I'm turning red. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think Gene Money and the Gene Money Championship will be well represented on March 7th. So don't miss that one, guys. If you're here in the UK, please come out and see it. If not, don't worry. ProgressWrestling.com has all of the on-demand results as well.
100%. And one Michael Turner again saying, we always love you, North Carolina hometown girl. We always love you. So thank you, Michael.
Barbecue, Michael.
Absolutely. So let's talk a bit about progress then, because that's where I've got to know you more, say more recently, certainly over the last year or so.
Yeah.
And I think you first made your appearance. We first saw you as a backstage interviewer, and then you kind of progressed to the commentary table with Olie Spring, and then more recently you covered for Simon Miller at the first show of 2023 as the MC. But going to bring up a picture there as yourself and Olie Spring,
I love Olie
Spring. And what I love about the two of you on commentary is that you've gelled from day one, haven't you? He's such a great guy, such a natural guy.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't gel and get on with Olie Spring? But such a fun guy and such a pro as well. But tell us a bit about your relationship with Olie Spring and how you two have literally got on from the very first minute.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate you saying that so much. And honestly, I am loving that you're also praising Olie, because Olie deserves all the praise. I just said to Lee today, I was like, Olie is so good and so naturally talented. And Olie is like the wrestling encyclopedia. So we're Olie, you know, I think it's a nice yin and yang, a nice give and take, because I'm not saying I'm the color person, but I'm sort of the one that, like, I don't know, he's really funny too, though. But like, we both like have our own niches, and Olie is like, yes, that was back in the Peckham era. That was, you know, this match. And he knows the history more than anyone. And not only does he know it, he loves it. He studies it. And he's so naturally talented at putting a story across and making it exciting. So honestly, all praise to Olie. But for me, yeah, I mean, commentary is a lot of fun. I did commentary in WOS. I did a lot of it in Shine and different, you know, promotions. But my main commentary gig, you know, that was on the biggest scale was WOS Wrestling on ITV. I was with Alex Shane and Stu Bennett, who are just, I mean, I was literally in between two of the most professional greats in commentary. They're amazing. And, you know, for me to be able to hold my own with the guys was very important. And it kind of set me up for progress in the sense that what I loved about WOS was I thought, okay, so I'm a girl. That's a big difference. I don't wrestle. And I'm also American. So, you know, WOS being this hugely British thing, Progress is the same. And WOS, much like Progress has done, was like, you be you. You be Val. You be your normal self. And they loved when I did my sort of like, you know, someone would do a big move and I would go cheese and crackers. And like, I have a bit of like a kind of a dad humor. And with
Valisms, I think they're called, aren't they? Valisms.
Valisms, yes. And I kind of thought like, are these too silly? They're like, no, that's you. It's natural, whatever. And with Olie, he lets me be me, and I'm appreciative that he's him. And we really did gel from the first one. I was like, wow, of course it got even more so going on, you know, as we did it. But even from the first show, I was like, this is so easy. And I'd met Olie before. He lives the same town that I do, Milton Keynes. So I'm so thrilled to do commentary. I love doing commentary. I get to watch it like a fan, from a fan's perspective, which, you know, as many years of, not to like toot my own horn and make me sound old here, you know, doubly. I think it's my 23rd year in the business this year. And I gauge that off of from when I did my first show. Consistently, then I was, you know, doing shows all the time.
Congratulations.
Isn't that crazy? Thank you. Yeah. It's really cool. Starting at like 16, it's kind of crazy. Again, makes me sound old, but I digress. To see it from a fan's perspective and to get to watch and be excited, like I teared up, and this is huge kudos to James, Alan, Jack, who do, you know, the creative and the video packages. There was a video package, maybe my third show, and I was watching from the balcony and I was like, I'm going to cry. Like, I love our show. I love our product. I love the stories. And to make me, you know, who sometimes gets jaded with wrestling, to make me a fan again is all thanks to how amazing Progress is. And I'll tell you, the first time I actually worked for Progress was a huge shout out to Paul Benson for this, for bringing me the opportunity, was for Who Run the World, which was their all-female show.
What a show.
And it was myself and Jade, awesome show. But what I always say, and I mentioned this when I was doing emceeing, and oh my God, to follow Simon Miller, who's flawless as a ring announcer, best ever. Sorry, JB. I mean that like in the... Don't come at me, bro. I'm just saying he's amazing.
Simon's got his own style. Simon is great.
I'm sure they're both watching right now. Sorry, guys. But no, he's just, you can't follow his act. You can't duplicate it. I just wanted to do him proud and do the guys proud. But but Who Run the World, I mentioned this when I was ring announcing, of how before a women's match, I said, I want you guys to applaud the fact that Progress Wrestling, progressive indeed, pun intended, they really have put the female wrestling talent in the spotlight where they deserve it. Who Run the World, if you haven't seen it, guys, it's on replay. Not only was it an all-female wrestling roster, there were 2 female commentators, myself and Jade, who's phenomenal. Jade, another Jade, who was a phenomenal ring announcer. The referees were female. It was all female, and
the
that's why
the referee
cool.
absolutely it was from top to bottom, and one of the best shows I was able to see last year, and like I say, a breakout show as well. One of the most important shows I think that happened in the UK wrestling business last year, I would say.
Yeah, and honestly, I was thrilled. I'm actually really honored that I was brought in that way, because I'm a girl's girl. Like, it's funny, I have a lot of guy friends because of wrestling, and that's great. And I love, the guys as well, but I'm very much a girl's girl, very much, you can do it, girl. Like, you gotta know your worth, that kind of a person. That's why we made Grown Ass Women TV, for female empowerment mainly. But for me to come into Progress in that way and to support the females really meant a lot to me. And I love that was sort of my first foray into Progress.
Absolutely. I'm gonna talk about Gore TV very, very soon, but I've got to flash up a few more pictures. And firstly, speaking of yourself and Olie Spring behind the commentary desk, I've got to ask,
oh my God,
what's going on?
I knew it.
What's going on here, Val? There's yourself with the cape, the crown. I think there might be a goblet there. There's Olie. I think Olie was probably wearing a cowboy hat earlier on in the day. And what's more intriguing to me is that there's 2 bottles of tomato ketchup to the side of Olie, and I don't know why, unless you were eating in between.
They're barbecue sauce.
Add a bit of context. Add a bit of context. A barbecue sauce, is it?
Yes, of course.
JR.
So there you go. So
JR and the King
is honoring, paying homage. Who, by the way, they saw our tweet. And Jerry Lawler. I love Jerry Lawler. I love Jim Ross. Jim Ross, I know a little more. I died after the show. I went out with a friend of mine, Kyle, and we were at the little bar across from Camden Ballroom. And that was the day that I was portraying Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. And we tweeted them and said, oh my God, and they tweeted back. It was so nice. And Jerry Lawler followed me, and I almost fell on the floor. Like, this is so funny. Because Olie, yes, who had the cowboy hat and the double barbecue sauce, because he came to play. We were talking in a show or two previously before that one. We were talking about Halloween, and I love a theme, like I said, about the Dalmatian theme for Gene's show. Again, March 7th, please get there. I said, we have to be someone from wrestling. Like, I thought maybe Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, who I love very much. I love both of them actually personally, and I love them as wrestlers, whatever. And we were like, well, and then I said, well, who else could we be? Or like, could I be like a girl in wrestling? It has to be something, I hate to say it, but kind of hokey that people will get immediately, right? And I thought loud, Hulk Hogan, Macho. And then I said, oh my God, we're a commentary duo. What if we're JR and Jim Ross? And what's funny is I know Jim Ross more than I know Jerry Lawler, but I was like, but Olie loved JR. And he's like, I think I'm more of the JR. I said, I get it. So I will go get a ridiculously silly cape and crown and goblet. And we honored them, and we sent them the tweets. And we just tried to say in the tweet, like, we're not making fun. We really want you guys to know that, like,
homage.
Yes. And I heard someone say, I said this to JR in person, that someone once said to him at a show, I was lucky enough to host it for him. They said, JR, you were the soundtrack to my childhood. You were the soundtrack to my wrestling, fandom. And I said, that's exactly what you were for me. And I meant it, because that was my era when they were both on commentary.
See, as soon as you said barbecue sauce, I put 2 and 2 together. Originally, I was putting 2 and 2 together and getting 12, and now I'm getting 4. But that absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And like I say, you've done the backstage stuff, and there you are. Fabulous picture there, and a few other snapshots of people that you've interviewed. And like I say, you've done the commentary with Olie Spring, of course, and you mentioned that you covered for Simon Miller at chapter 148. I think it was. Start spreading the news in January. And that brings us to a listener question, and it is from Darren, who sent in a question. My question is, how does it feel to work with a company like Progress? So, I mean, Progress has been around for just over 10 years. Fantastic company. I'd say world-renowned. I think it's considered one of the leading independent promotions, not just in the UK, but further afield. Coming into a company like Progress, did you know much about it before you came in? And, I mean, like I say, you said that it reignited your love for Progress, that it lit that spark again. But how does it feel to work for a company like Progress?
Great question. Thank you, Darren, and thank you, Johners. I will tell you that I had heard of Progress ages ago, and ages before I started with them, and I just always was told. And the thing is, you learn through the grapevine, and you're a lot of times, well, all the time, someone's reputation precedes them, right? So I always heard of Progress as the #1 UK promotion. I love working for other promotions in the UK, but I will go on record. Honestly, I would have said this before I worked for them. Progress is the one that everyone talks about. Progress is the one that is synonymous with UK wrestling. As an American, that's just the facts. That's what all the guys talk about. That, Progress is UK wrestling. So knowing that, when I moved to the UK, I had reached out to them a couple times about being on Fight TV because I've worked for Fight TV for ages. I love the company, and didn't really go anywhere. Then my first Progress Wrestling getting near a show, I was around Canada with my husband and a couple of our friends around my birthday, and I saw these wrestling shirts, and I was like, "What's going on? Why are all these wrestling shirts?" And there were people lined up, as they are now, around the Camden Electric Ballroom, and I thought, "Wow, this is so cool." And I knew then that all of my, what I've been hearing was true. That this is really I say independent, but it's the biggest in the UK. So, I was a little intimidated, I'll be honest, especially going to the girls' show, because I thought, okay, I've got to do all my research. And what I did was I followed every single girl on the show, and I DM'd them, and I said, "Hi, can you tell me about I want to know everything you can tell me." I said, "No information is going to be frivolous. Please just tell me all about your character, what I can get across on commentary, all that." And every single girl was so amazing, so lovely. And now I'm finally in a group where I know, everything there is to know pretty much about all the guys and the girls. But it does take time. And that worried me, because I just thought, I know Impact Wrestling like the back of my hand. On a house show, I can, I always call it the art of BS. If something happens, one time the ring broke. It was like one of the best things to happen to me in my ring announcing career, because you have to learn how to like vamp and, cover up. But I knew that company like the back of my hand. I knew our champions. I knew the history. I knew everybody, where they're from, what their finishing move is, everything. But I was there for 9 years. So to come into Progress and not be super, super, super well versed in everyone's arsenal, that is a little intimidating. And it's intimidating for me, not because you kind of go, am I going to sound stupid? But what I really was intimidated about is the fact that I didn't want to show any sort of disrespect. I didn't want to go in there and forget someone's name, or because you never know how someone's going to take it. And no one, luckily it's a really lovely roster, and no one is like a diva about anything. But you know what I'm saying? I wanted it to be like with the wrestlers to feel like I was really trying to learn, and I was there to have respect and to contribute to the show in any way I could, because I believed in it. So that was the only kind of reticence. I thought, I hope they know that I'm here for the right reasons. And that kind of took me back to when I started doing indie shows and Impact shows, because you are especially as a female, people are very, very quick to go, "Oh, she's here to be on TV or wear cute outfits." I do love the cute outfits, but she's here to and maybe she's here to sleep with the guys, and she's a rat, just being super blunt. And until they saw how hard I worked, most people didn't think that. But there are some people that kind of go, "What's this girl about?" And I'm really young. Some of my first shows in Florida, I couldn't even go to the after parties. Even WEW in Philadelphia with Francine and a great roster of ladies, I couldn't go to the after party because I wasn't 21. And people were like, "What's this girl doing? She's 16. What the hell?" And then when they went, "Oh, she just really, really loves wrestling, and she just wants to contribute, and her heart's in the right place," then I was taken seriously. And I hope that now, going into Progress, people find that out about me, and they know that, and my reputation hopefully says that for me. But again, it was interesting going into a whole new company after being in the business for so long, switching countries. Also, the way that I said Progress, and I kept asking people, if I say Progress, people in the US are going to think I'm putting on airs, and I have to talk the way that I talk. And
what about Val, when you say the word Thunder Bastard? Now that did tickle me. That did tickle me when you said that when you was covering for Simon 148, because you put on the Queen's English. It was almost perfect. Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it. Stop it. Well, I didn't want to make fun of the accent, because I've got to tell you, I've lived here almost 7 years now, and people very often make fun of my accent. So I didn't want to make fun of the accent, but I wanted to kind of get a little cheap pop out of them, because I said to my husband, honestly, I told Simon yesterday, I was like, I had nightmares about doing this. I was freaked out. So honestly, I don't get nervous about a lot of things. I'm kind of it's old hat and I'll be fine. I care about what I do, but I don't get for weeks was oh my God, over stupid things like that. And the crowd was so loving and so fun. They gave me a SoCal Val chant that really put me at ease. I wanted to cry. And then when I said Thunder, because credit to Spike Trevay, I did an interview with him, and I said, "Yeah, the Thunder Bastard." And he corrected me, and it was funny because he's such a heel, And I go, "Thunder Bastard," and he goes, and he had me say it that way. And then when I said it in the ring, they started chanting it. So I think it was kind of a lighthearted way and I kind of said "Hey, sorry about the accent. It's the only one I got." So I tried to make it humorous because that was, again, out of respect. I don't want them to go, who is this American girl? This, bubbly, annoying American girl, to go like, all right, it's progress. And, so that was a little weird for me, but the fans made me feel at ease. Thank God. So kudos to them.
Absolutely, and we've had a ton of questions come through during this live stream.
Yay.
We will get to you all. We will get to you all. But Richard Pugh, once again, watching us via YouTube. Progress is the one aim of all people working in wrestling. I think that's quite right, Richard. Certainly, if you're a UK worker, Progress is one of the promotions you definitely want to find yourself on the card. And 100 puppies win 88% of the time, says Richard. So I think we know who would win that match for sure. But
puppies.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Jerry Lawler, we're team puppies. There you go.
Absolutely. But you mentioned that you made your debut at Who Run the World. Let's just see where I am. So we have another question that came through from Charlie Crothers. Let me bring up his question. Now, Charlie sent us a question via Instagram. And since joining Progress, what's been your favourite moments? So I'm sure you've had many favourite moments in, let's be honest, quite a short space of time, maybe less than a year that you've been part of the Progress team. But I'm sure there's been quite a few highlights and favourite moments of yours so far, Val.
Yeah, I think, by the way, Charlie is Progress Wrestling royalty. He's awesome. I get a kick out of watching Charlie reacting to what's going on. So he's tremendous. So Charlie, lots of love. Just one of the nicest, most loyal people. You can just tell. I love when I see fans like really, getting into it respectively. That's why I like how Charlie conducts himself at the show. So he's a gem. Thank you, Charlie. I will tell you, there's a few things that stick out. I have to say that I'm such a video package montage person. I don't know if that's from like watching around like the early 2000s where I go back to like Creed, My Sacrifice. That's like my everything in wrestling. And I play it on the jukebox at the pub and get all teary-eyed and everyone's like, what's she doing? But I love the video packages. Many of those have made me very teary-eyed and really like, wow, I love wrestling. As I said earlier, I loved Who Run the World because I loved the girls' matches. I loved the Giselle and Kanji feud. I thought that was tremendous.
Yeah.
And the final match of that I watched in awe. I thought that was amazing. There's so many. Honestly, I'm going to get a lot of heat. I love Spike Trivet. I think he's horrible.
What a character. Yeah.
But I can't say this very often, I love a heel. Triple H was always my guy. Triple H and Barry Hunter, Hearst Helmsley, that kind of vibe, which is very Spike Trivet. I just love a good heel. And for him to just effortlessly, he has to just give a look. And the fans, I think he's tremendous. I'm trying to think of actual matches or moments. It's more about like the characters, I suppose. So like Charles Crowley, I get sucked into everything he does. There's so many great talents. I love 0121. Sunshine Machine, I love so much. It's like I love them.
Yeah.
A lot of their matches, for me, and entrances are just so much fun. Gosh, there's so many good moments.
I think you've named quite a few there, Val. So thank you so much for that. And quite a few of them are my favourite moments as well. But another question that came through, back to your relationship with Olie Spring. What have you learnt from working with Olie Spring on the commentary desk at Progress? So I know that you're well versed behind the desk, in front of a microphone on commentary. But has there been anything that you may have learnt from the great Olie Spring, the mastermind?
The mastermind. I know. I was tagging him like, what's your Instagram again? I think, for Olie, I think what Olie should be praised about, like I said earlier, is just knowing your history and knowing the backstory of everything. Because having come in, not having been there more than a year, I still haven't been there more than a year. That's something I had to go back and like look at a lot of the I say tapes. It's such an old term, but look at the past shows, understand the history. And Ollie's been so great to kind of explain things to me about what it meant, why the crowd reacts. Because honestly, sometimes I'm like, I haven't seen someone wrestle before. And I'm like, I don't get the hype yet. I then get it. But for me, a lot of these people are brand new. And honestly, I try to be very honest on commentary too and kind of say like, this is my first time seeing someone. I don't want them to ever think that I'm trying to go, oh yeah, I've seen them for years. I'm not going to lie. And I hope that's endearing and genuine, that I'm having to say like, I'm learning I've loved seeing them, or they're new to me, because again, I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, and I hope that's a good thing. Because
I think the fans appreciate that, Val, to be honest with you, and they appreciate the honesty and the fact that you're learning about the individual as it's happening.
Yeah, and that's really fun, because again, it kind of makes me feel like a fan again, and that's very, very rare for me to feel like, I just sound rude, but like watching WWE, I know most of the guys. Impact, I know everybody. So it's kind of like, okay, that's Bobby wrestling, or that's Gail.
Yeah.
But with this, it's like, oh, I get to see them as this whole fun entity, and to learn about that's very cool. And thank God I have Olie to kind of steer me in that direction, because he's a wrestling historian. That's how I would describe Olie.
Yeah, I think the chemistry between you two is off the charts. I absolutely love it. And like I say, it's been there from day one and it continues to get stronger. But let's talk about this now. One of your favorite subjects, grown ass women, very important nonsense. So we're going to talk about some of the topics. But there you are, three fine ladies. Mickie James, of course. It's at Lisa Marie Veron and yourself, of course, on the right-hand side. And it leads us to a question. Now, I think your show has been going for about 2 years. It started during lockdown, and I think you've done 100+ episodes. Now, if my math is correct, I think you're approaching 140, about 140 episodes or thereabouts. Is that about right?
150. Yeah.
Oh, 150. Wow.
Yeah, May 20th, 2020.
Wow.
We did start in the smack dab of lockdown, yeah.
Getting close to 3 years then. But we did have a question come through, and Richie, good friend of the show, who first pitched the idea of Gore TV? So tell us about that conversation, or the inception of Gore TV. Obviously, it was during the dark times when there was no wrestling and we couldn't see each other. We couldn't leave our homes when the pandemic was around, and there was a lot of podcasts cropping up, and this one started a few years before that. So I was already kind of had found my feet by then. But tell us about the inspiration and the genesis behind Gore TV.
Well, weird enough, I was talking to Nick Aldis, and he was talking about doing things like, more lives and more social media content. I said, I have really, really wanted for a long time. I kept thinking about doing like a show, and I've always loved shows like The View and The Real, and like female kind of centric. I overhear, loose women, things like that. And I thought it would be a cool idea. And I kind of said to Nick, like, I really want to do something like that. And he's like, oh my God, that's funny, because Mickie's been talking about the exact same thing. You guys should talk about it. So we started talking. And by the way, the name is all Mickie. We went back and forth with different names. And we loved, we wanted something strong, something about females, but like grown ass women. It's kind of like, it's a bit sassy. It's like, we're grown ass women. We've been there, done that kind of a thing.
That's the sort of thing that Mickie would say, isn't it?
It's very Mickie. Yeah, but I love it when we could shorten it to GAWTV. That's how we all refer to it, as GAWTV. And yeah, so then we were thinking of like a third host, and we just went, oh, it's got to be Lisa. Like Lisa, I always say, is like built for reality TV, meaning like I would want to watch Lisa like hanging out on her lawn, or like one of the funniest videos she's ever did was like washing her dogs. Like Lisa's just entertaining. She's funny. She says anything on her mind. She's zany, and she's just built for reality TV and for this kind of, particular show. And we want it to be mainly, about female empowerment, but of course we branch out, mostly wrestling, of course. But we've had everyone on the show, from drag queens, which is very much in my genre, being an ally and loving RuPaul's Drag Race. We've had Taylor Dane, who's a musician. We've had people from Bravo TV. We've had a ghost hunter on. We've had a psychic on. We've had, holistic natural healers, all sorts of things, actors, actresses. And we really love to do things outside of wrestling, but obviously we know where our bread is buttered, and we know that the fans are mostly from wrestling. So the ones that perform the best as far as episodes are wrestlers. And the thing is, it's easy for us because they're our friends. But we didn't want to have, and with all due respect to your podcast or anybody else's show, by the way, we say podcast, it's more like a YouTube show. People goes, oh, you're a podcast. And I'm like, I never refer to it like that, because I just think of it more as a YouTube show. We're very visual. We go to different clips and things. But it's also in podcast form, of course, which you can go to GAWTV.com, GAWTV.com, and look that up. But we started to have a lot of our friends on the show, and we thought, we don't want it to be just a, hey, how are you? How'd you get into wrestling? We want it to be like, all right, wear pajamas, get a cocktail. If you want to do a shot, do a shot. And the idea was, going beyond that velvet rope, like after a signing, for example. What we do is we decompress, we get in our comfies, we go to the hotel room, we open a bottle of wine, and we just dish. And that's what the show hopefully still feels like, because that's what we want it to be like. Come with us and just, talk about funny road stories. Remember the
three friends just chatting. Yeah.
That's really what it was about. And it's still like that. And that's why I think a lot of our friends are happy to do it. They would do it anyway if it's us. But we go, dude, it's not like, remember that time in ECW you did this, incredible match? We're like, cool. Anyways, remember that time we went at the Waffle House and like you fell asleep, and all these stupid things that are just so funny to us that happened in real life. So we hope that comes across very genuinely.
Absolutely, and it's not just wine and cocktails that you drink; it's tea sometimes as well. Val, it's tea sometimes as well. But some of the guests you've had on that will be familiar with wrestling fans, obviously, Progress's very own Queen of Mean, Lana Austin, of course. You've had Jetta and Charlie Morgan on, WWE's very own Chelsea Green.
He's been on twice, actually. Yeah, JBL.
That's it. JBL Hall of Famers, JBL, Michelle McCall, who had a fantastic appearance in this year's Royal Rumble, by the way, coming out in a Uggs from the front row. Diamond Dallas Page, and of course to celebrate episode 100, you had Kurt Angle, and he did the podcast with a broken freaking neck, of course. But and to come, I think you've already got this in the can. But Barbie Blank, the former Kelly, is coming on the show. So a fantastic array of guests from all industries, as you've said, and the conversation can really go off kilter. It's not just about pro wrestling. It's about what you had at the Waffle House and what tea you're drinking, or what's your favorite wine, or whatever. But you've had some wonderful guests, like say Hall of Fame caliber guests there, and like say you're getting close to or have approached 150 episodes. You're getting close to 3 years now, so congratulations on that. And it just seems to be going from strength to strength, Val.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been amazing, and honestly, it's just gabbing with your girlfriends, and that somehow is part of our work. So that's been amazing. I will say, if I can plug a little bit, we have a charity called WrestleMania, which is basically, in a nutshell, it's our 3rd year doing it, and it's our charity event where originally on the first WrestleMania we could only do it virtually. The 2nd year we did it in person. There's an episode we were in Dallas, and everyone came, and we did a live episode there. This year, I can't reveal too much because we're about to announce some things. It's going to be the biggest, best one yet. We have another thing I was going to tease. We have someone that's involved that everyone knows and loves that's going to be helping us present WrestleMania. And of course, if you want to know that reveal, we're going to be revealing it soon on GAWTV. But, it's an in-person event. Basically, it started with all the girls in wrestling auctioning off a dress that they've worn on the red carpet, on WWE or on Impact or on AEW, whatever. Some of them actually auction off their gear. We had Molly Holly, and we did it on eBay. Now we're going to use a different platform, but we had Molly Holly give us her Hall of Fame dress. We had Kelly auction off like a lingerie outfit that she wore in a beautiful photo shoot. We had Tori Wilson donate her gear. Candice Michelle donate her gear. Paige, everyone's been so generous, and this year it's going to be bigger and better than ever. We now have the guys donating things and adding extras to it, like signed 8x10s, cameo video shout outs, things like that. And every year it gets bigger and bigger, and we're hoping that every year people will remember the name WrestleMania. This year we are benefiting childhelp.org, which is a charity that deals with child trafficking and child abuse, and it just has so many amazing things that it does for children, and it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. Mickie has been an ambassador for them for years, so we know, that all the money's going to go to an amazing place. All of the charities are very well vetted. We're not just going, oh, that sounds good. Child Help especially is someone that Mickie has worked, hand in hand with for many years. So this one, I think, is going to be the best one yet. And WrestleMania is going to take place, we believe, on Saturday at WrestleCon after Mania on Saturday in LA, but details are to come. But if you look up WrestleMania, you can just find all the details from the past years, and it's been amazing. The first year we raised almost $10,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
So we're hoping to get bigger and better every year for the great cause that it is.
Absolutely. So stay tuned to Gore TV socials for more information on that. And like I say, you can follow Gore TV on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and of course they've got their own very website there at GoreTV.com. So follow all of Gore TV's wonderful episodes. And like I say, such amazing guests, and like I say, doing some wonderful thing for charity with WrestleMania as well. But tell us a little bit about your wrestling fandom. Let's take a deep dive, because doing my research on you, Val, and like I say, speaking to you in person, you've been pretty much a lifelong wrestling fan. And I think we've established that you grew up in Carolina, North Carolina. So a bit of a hotbed for pro wrestling. But what was your wrestling fandom like back in the early years?
It's funny because, especially living in the UK, people always go, even today in the Uber, where are you from in America? And I go, I lived in 5 states. So I grew up in Texas till I was 9. But then I will say I didn't remember seeing a lot of wrestling around. I have a family of all girls, just my mom and 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest. And, not that wrestling has to be just a male thing, but, a lot of times many people get into wrestling because their granddad watched it or whatever, their brothers. I never had any access to it. In North Carolina, I will say, randomly enough, that we just mentioned North Carolina, that's where I remember seeing a lot of Austin 316 shirts. Didn't get it. but I didn't know what that meant. But I saw a lot of Austin shirts. But it wasn't until I lived in Orlando, where I've lived most of my life, that's home for me, did I see wrestling really on TV. And my middle sister, older sister, but the middle of the three, was watching with her friend, and she was watching The Rock and Jericho. This was around like 98 or so. And I was like, oh, that stuff's for boys. Like, I don't like that. It's stupid. I'm being girly. And then I kept passing by the TV like, well, who's that? And I saw like the cat, and the cat was in like hot pink and blonde and like bouncing around. I was like, well, I like her. And then Stephanie really resonated. I was like, what is her deal? Why is she always screeching? Why is she so mean? And then she'd get like a pie to the face. And every week it was like, is she going to get, her comeuppance kind of a thing? And then I started to get into it for the storyline. So like, and I talked about it with him before, the Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie storyline, the love triangle with Trish Mix sprinkled in. That was like, oh my God, that was the be all end all. Then it went to like, and I've talked to all of them about this by now, the Trish and Lita versus Tori and Stacy, WCW, WWF, or WWE by that time. I think it was WWF actually. Invasion angle where like the Hardys were involved, and it was the soap opera aspect. That was my be all end all, those sorts of storylines, and loving the divas and loving the photo shoots and things like that. With all due respect, I mean, I tried wrestling a bit, but I never wanted to be a wrestler. I just wanted to be like a Tori or mainly a Stephanie, who was kind of like the boss babe, but would like act and, bring out the guys and manage. That's what I really wanted to do. And I say this all the time on GAWTV. We talk about almost every episode how, serious female wrestling, if that was the only thing I had access to, I would have never been interested. It just wasn't for me. I'm not athletic. It's not my thing. But you give me a Dawn Marie and you give me a Stacy Keibler, I'm on board. That's what I got to do.
But because a lot of people have, they don't talk too fondly about the Divas era.
I know.
And about the Divas Championship. And like I say, there was the bra and panties matches and all that. But I think
loved those so much.
It was so much more than that, though, wasn't it, Val? And it did give us, some Hall of Famers years to come, and some of the biggest names in the industry, some of the biggest names in female wrestling, like the Trish Stratuses and various others. But I know that you kind of model yourself a little bit on the Divas era, don't you?
Yeah, 1,000%. And I've talked about it many times. Like, there's a great episode we did with Tori where she was like, yeah, I was kind of like embarrassed. I wanted to cry. I was like, and I said, if it weren't for you, I would have never gotten to wrestling. I'm in my I didn't say this, but I'm the 23rd year in wrestling that I've consistently made a living off of this because of Tori. No offense. And again, I'm not trying to name names, but an AJ Lee or a Lita or a very serious wrestler,
yes.
that it just, I liked them, but it did not resonate with me. And that's fair. If a girl says to me, well, and I have a lot of girls that say this, well, I didn't resonate, I didn't understand the Divas. I didn't like it. Like, that's fine. It's Baskin Robbins, baby. It's 31 flavors. There has to be diversity, and there might be a little Val watching that goes, oh, I want to be a Val. I want to do the talking. And that would just thrill me, because another girl might go, watching Progress, I want to be a Kanji. I want to kick ass. I want to be Rio. I want to be, Lana Austin. But for me, I've said this before, like, feminism is about choice, and it wasn't my choice to be in that genre. I wanted to be in the glitzy, Caribbean photo shoots and having a microphone and talking, or talking for a wrestler and cutting a promo for them. That's what I wanted to do. And it doesn't make it any better or worse or more or less important contributing to the show. I mean, yes, it's physically more grueling to be a wrestler, but we're all there to contribute, dude. Like, that's all it is. And if your heart is in the right place, and if you just want to have a place in wrestling, just to contribute to it because you love the business, why can't you be a commentator or an interviewer? I mean, that's just, that actually insults me when people say things like that, oh, okay, well, if you're not wrestling, there's a lot of places to be anything you want to be in wrestling. And to pigeonhole women to one specific thing, you have to be a serious wrestler. You can't be sexy. You can't have makeup. You can't show your bosom, whatever. That ain't feminism. So let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do what we want, how we want, when we want, and that's feminism, my friend.
Yeah, and I love the Baskin Robbins quote there, because I always say, wrestling is like ice cream, and there's so many different flavors, so many different styles. And like I say, if you don't like one style, I'm sure there's another one that will suit you.
Diversity, right? That's what we have to get back to.
Exactly. And we spoke a bit about your wrestling fandom. You used to go to the shows as well, I understand. And give us a bit of a glimpse, and tell us how you went from being a fan to actually being part of the business. And I think going to the shows, there's a bit of a connection there, isn't there?
There is, for sure. And I would go to some shows, like I said earlier, when I was like 14, I would get like a ticket to Raw. One time I got a ticket from a scalper, And it was like right behind a big beam, and I was so upset. Another time, because when you get one ticket, sometimes you get a really good seat because it's just, you know, cherry picking where you're sitting. And one time I got right by the ramp, and I remember I touched Jeff Hardy's arm. Totally told him the story, and it was the episode. It was the episode in Orlando where they revealed one of my favorite video packages, the "Beautiful Day" by U2 video of Triple H's return.
Yeah,
died. I was watching it like, oh my God, it was still to this day, I can get goosebumps thinking about it. So I would go to shows by myself. I lived in Florida. I never really went to any indie shows. We moved to LA, Southern California, hence the name SoCal. And I started to go to shows. My friend was, he knew some of the wrestlers and was involved a little bit with XPW, if you can believe that. I went to my earliest shows. A lot of them were XPW. And then I went to one called I think it was at XPW. My good friend David, who was like an actor in LA, much older than me, and my other friend Deja was older than me as well. And my mom was like, "You can't go to these shows. You're 15 years old. You have to have someone with you." I'm like, "Okay, Mom." She's not wrong. It was like downtown LA, for God's sakes. Like, you know, thank you very much. It's a little dangerous down there. So all due respect to Southern California, which I'm happy to return to. Just saying, though, it's not for a 15-year-old girl to be wandering around. So I went to these shows, and my friend was like, "Yeah, the promoter over there, Henry Luna, runs GCW, which was GSCW, which was Golden State Championship Wrestling, a very small promotion, but they ran at a flea market in Anaheim." And he goes, "Yeah, that's my friend over there. You know, she really just wants to be in the business, and maybe she could manage one of the guys, or could you throw her on the show?" And he was like, "Okay, cool." So they did that. And the first wrestler I managed was, he was called Pinoy Boy at the time. He was eventually called TJ Perkins, and he's had many names since then. And his opponent was Scott Lost. And I turned on him for Scott Lost. I might be getting it backwards. I think that's how it went. Yeah. Turned on him for Scott Lost, got to be a heel, got to live my Stephanie moment. And that was my first show. That was March 30th, 2002 in the Anaheim Flea Market. And then I just kept, you know, I did photo shoots of myself. My friend took photos of me. I made myself a website, and I just kept doing more and more shows. I managed Frankie Kazarian a little while after that, who's still one of my good friends, and his wife Tracy's one of my best friends. And I just kept doing more and more shows, then moved to Orlando, did more shows. Because I had done a few shows in California, I made like VHS tapes of myself and made myself a resume. So I'd go to the shows, and I remember one time this promoter was like, you know, "She doesn't have a tape. I can't hire her." I was like, "Okay." He was a real jerk, by the way. And then SCW, which Chris Carson invited me to like do like a raffle on the show, be kind of like a Vanna White. That parlayed into more shows. Then Impact Wrestling came into town, and you better believe I was there at Universal Security, getting my little VHS tape out of my purse, my resume, and sitting in the crowd. And I eventually met, you know, David Sahadi and JB, who gave me opportunities, and I ended up being with that company. I started as a production assistant. They basically just said, "We know you want to be here." Mainly David Sahadi was the first one. "Let's get you backstage. You can help be a production assistant. Let's get you seen by the right people." Then JB let me be ring girl. I was actually out there doing things in front of the camera. And that parlayed into a 9-year career. And I grew up in that company. So it was a slow burn, but people that just go, "Okay, well, she's some girl that just probably, you know, won a modeling contest." Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But the way I did it was very much please let me be on the show. I have my website. I have all my little ducks in a row. You know, I came prepared, really prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All that. Watched Dawn Marie and Francine and all these people that came before me. And I really, really did my research and wanted to be super, super prepared.
Yeah. And like I say, doing my research, you mentioned that you first got into the business about 15, 16 years old. Yeah. But I'd say for a lot of people, that might strike them as being quite a young age to get involved in the wrestling business, especially doing what you're doing as a valet, as a manager. Was the industry welcoming towards you back then, especially at such a young age? Would it have been quite difficult for you to have been taken seriously or to get those opportunities?
Not too bad. I mean, like I said, there were a couple people, like there was a valet that was the husband. A lot of the valets in Orlando, well, actually Tampa St. Pete is where I did the most of the shows for like 3 years, IPW, NWA Florida. I managed Danny Doring, one of the first ones that I managed. He was a big deal because he was an ex-ECW guy. But a lot of the people, well, mainly the only valets that were there were the wives of the wrestlers. So they were kind of like, one of them was really nice. And she was just like, oh, okay. The other one was like, who's this girl? And why is she backstage with these guys? And she really did not like me. I went to an after party that was I guess I was under 21. And like at a certain time at the bar, she was like, you can't be here. So there was a little bit of that here and there. Yeah. But I mean, those are very rare stories. For the most part, it was very welcoming. The fans, you know, when I first started, I was super, super thin and like, I just looked like a teenager. You know, I hadn't really developed yet. And I were doing these matches for Danny Doring in the WrestlePlex in early IPW NWA days. and FIP as well. They end up using me a lot, which then I, actually evolved into Evolve. Gabe and Sal gave me so many opportunities. Ron Nimi. But some of the fans would chant like training bra, 16 will get you 20, meaning like jailbait.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of all in good fun. It was like I was a heel, so did it get to me? No. I was like, cool, they don't like me. I'm doing my job right. I'm getting that Stephanie McMahon heat.
You mentioned getting noticed at TNA shows. You got signed in 2006, if I'm not mistaken.
2004.
2004?
Well, my first show, I think, was 2004.
Right. As
far as signing, around maybe a year after that or so.
Gotcha. You was involved in some really memorable storylines, and so I think the Jay Lethal and Sonjay Dutt wedding angle, that was very, very memorable, of course. And I've got a couple of little pictures for that as well, just to bring back some memories as well. Obviously that one there, and the wedding reception didn't end too well.
Do they ever?
Jake the Snake, they don't in wrestling, do they? They never do. Weddings and wrestling do not go together. Whoever suggested that really needs to get another job. But some really, I think you even was in an angle involving Kurt Angle and Jim Cornette. And so many others, I think, out and around ringside. I think he was attacked by various wrestlers, Awesome Kong, and maybe one or two others, Bully Ray. But I'd say, what are your memories of some of them moments? Because I'd say to be involved, and let's be honest, TNA around that time in the mid to late 2000s was on a bit of a high. Spike TV, some of the best and hottest action you're likely to see anywhere on your TV, and big names coming in as well, just to draw more eyes to the product. But I'd say you were front and center for a lot of that. So what are your kind of recollections of some of their moments, especially the ones you were involved in?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest highlight was the Jay Lethal and Sonjay storyline. And for me, it was funny because that was like my first time really getting to do what I really wanted to do. Like Ring Girl was great, and that's fun. And like the Kurt Angle thing, I mean, again, talking about me being a fan from the get-go, that was somebody. And I told him, I was like, do you understand? Like that's the most, I was like, big what time. Happened in that hotel room 324? Like, are we ever going to find out? And he was like, oh, Val. I actually had the right number. I probably don't have it now, but I was like a whole, remember that storyline? They kept teasing this hotel room number, blah, blah, blah. And they never really like told us. And I'm like, I gotta know. And it's like 12 years later. So stuff like that was amazing. But like Ring Girl I just always hoped it would parlay into something else. And finally with the storyline with Jay Lethal, I was able to, act and be the Val character. But truthfully, the turn on Jay Lethal, which everyone still blames me for. I'm like, Sanjay's dad had more money. I don't know what else I need to say. Did you see the size of the ring compared to Sanjay's size of the ring? It's all size. That's gonna get clickbait somewhere. Anyway, the point is when I got to turn heel, that's when I felt like SoCal Val, because on the indies I was almost never a face. I was always, I spell my name with a $sign. I have a very Missy Hyatt, Stephanie, Miss Elizabeth too, but Miss Elizabeth more in outfits, and that was fun to play that Miss Elizabeth character and be the America's sweetheart and be cutesy, and I loved it. I thought I did a good job, but it wasn't Val to me. So when I changed to the Sonjay storyline, I was like, this is really what I've wanted to do the whole time. This is what I've been doing on the indies for years, cutting promos and managing wrestlers and stuff. So that felt very much like me. And then it took kind of a weird turn because then Sonjay and Jay Lethal left the company, and they were kind of like, okay, so you could either, the only option was really like, we know it's a bit of a step backwards. Remember this conversation like it was yesterday. We know it's a bit of a step backwards. Would you go back to doing Ring Girl? And I was proud of myself because I said, it is a step backwards, but whatever the company needs, I'm happy to be here. I want to stay here, and I'm happy to go do that. So I did that for a few more years or whatever. And then what really happened after that was Mike Weber, who's really to praise for me staying around and honing my skills as a presenter. He really saw potential in me to I started to write copy for some of the commercials. I hosted the commercials. I interviewed people. I did little backstage segments. A lot of that too was international markets, which is funny because when I moved over here, people were like, oh yeah, we'd see you all the time on Challenge TV. And I'm like, I didn't even know anyone watched that, because it just feels like I'm in a back room going,
it's big on Challenge TV over here. Big on Challenge TV, yeah.
Because I'm not from here. I just thought, so in a weird way, that helped my following here to have done those sort of international markets. I did one, and I was like, can I speak French in it? I learned some lines, learned a little bit of German. And Mike just knew, who was still my boss at Fight TV. He's amazing. He's the COO of Fight, Mike Weber. And he was just really instrumental in having me learn and grow as a performer, and let me have ideas, let me come up with little funny segments. He let me come up with pillow talk, which was my favorite. I got to, that was my Nitro Girl Divas moment to like, let's all wear satin robes and I'm going to interview in the locker room. It's going to be like, no one's allowed in here, but it's, fan questions. That really was the beginnings of GAWTV, if you think about it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, you spent 9 fantastic years there. So many highs, maybe 1 or 2 lows, but a great learning experience, Val. Fantastic learning experience. But above all else, you made some friends for life as well.
I did. And that's what's amazing. Like, again, when I say I grew up in that company, like, it's not like, oh, I worked with that person for a while and then I didn't see him again. Like Mr. Flair, who I just saw in Baltimore, I was like, woo! He was around for a year. I told this funny story about how I had a birthday party downtown and I invited all the people from TNA and all around the makeup room. I was going, hey guys, I'm going to do this party downtown. I wish I had a picture of it because it's actually at my mom's house. And everyone was like, okay, yeah, Val, we might make it. I'm like, no, but it's my birthday. And Mr. Flair overheard and he was like, you're having a birthday? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, where is it? And I told him and he goes, oh yeah, I'll be there, Val. And I was like, okay. I'm thinking, sure. Pretty much no one showed up. And then the sea of people parted and I feel like I heard the music in my head, his entrance theme. He walks in. He came to my birthday party at like 11 at night, midnight, whatever, and showed up for me. This is the kind of guy Ric Flair is. These are the kind of people that I go, we have a lot of great memories, like I said, about Storm, the girls. Robbie E is one of my favorite people in the world. JB, Jeremy Borash, probably the funniest guy I've ever met. RJ City's pretty close, though, I will say. Not to put them neck and neck, but these are people that, and JB gave me tons of opportunities that I'll just, I treasure these friendships for life. And AJ Styles, for crying out loud, and Samoa Joe, who I'll text me like, you looked great, or what was that you were wearing? AJ was nice to give me tickets one time when WWE came to UK, and he was so funny. In the back, he was like, Val, to the accent. He's like, Val, our whole roster's here. Like, Bobby's over there. We got EY. What the hell? And I was like, I don't know, dude. This is a weird transitional period because when I was sort of trying to transition from Impact to WWE and did those Rosebuds, stints, it was very much like weird about Impact people joining WWE. And then when that shift happened, honestly, it was a weird timing for me that's kind of when I had moved. I'm not blaming it on that, but it's just a weird thing because I was told different things about, oh, I didn't know you were in another company. And then I found out that people did know I was in that company. So there's a lot of weird, trepidation with hiring an Impact person. And then by the time, Bobby went, AJ went, everybody, now it's like an Impact on steroids.
Well, this is it. You look at the WWE roster, you look at NXT, the black and gold version from a couple of years back, from a few years back, and I'd say all the greatest independent talent, but ROH and Impact and TNA were represented 100%, and that was my favorite era of NXT, and like I say, some of my favorite wrestlers now. But we've had a few questions come through. And Darren, good friend of the show, good friend of mine. Even though she was also a wrestler back then, I still remember first seeing her as a manager whenever I peeked into Impact. I wonder if she still misses being a manager today in pro wrestlers. So is there a part of you, Val, that maybe misses being a valet or a wrestler? And is it something you'd maybe want to do maybe one more time?
That's interesting because I haven't done it in quite a while, but because that was my main goal, really, before I realized that presenting and being a host was more my calling, and not only it's not more my calling, they both feel just as natural, but there's more longevity in being a host and a presenter. That's what happened, after the Jay Lethal storyline. By the way, thank you, Darren, great question. That's what happened with me is I thought, okay, so after that storyline ended, they could have easily just let me go, but because I developed the skills to be a talker and to present things, that I can do that anywhere in the world and for anything I ever want to do, which is phenomenal. But managing was really my first Stephanie, Missy Hyatt, that kind of old school Sunny, Smoky Mountain Wrestling Sunny. That is my jam. And I've thought about that. When I first got into Progress, I thought, okay, so where am I going to fit in here? I've done commentary. I've done interviews. I've now done ring announcing. I don't know if I could, do that and still do behind the scenes duties as well. That'd be great. But there's a small part of me that goes like, oh man, I miss just ripping, because it comes, what's scary, Johners? Friend of friend, it comes really naturally for me to be that. It really does. I just cut this promo on my Instagram of the day where I was just being honest and being very sassy. And that's what's great about being a manager, especially a heel manager, is it allows you to say all the things that you're not supposed to say. So for that reason, I'm like, the sassiness, yeah. So I would say never, but it has definitely crossed my mind in the last half a year or so when I started Progress. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to finish with some fan questions, but before I do have to throw a quick mention, and let's just change things up here. A quick mention to good friends of mine, and it's Avant Guard Wrestling from the Northeast up in Newcastle upon Tyne, and they've got their next show on 18th of March 2023 from the Jubilee Club in Newcastle upon Tyne. And if you go to Eventbrite, where they are selling tickets, go to eventbrite.com and search Avantgarde, and Avantgarde Farrell is their next show, Avantgarde Farrell. And if you put in the promo code Johners, you can get an incredible 25% off of your ticket or tickets to their next show on the 18th of March. Or simply scan the barcode on the screen and it will take you straight to Eventbrite, where you can get your tickets today. But don't forget to use the promo code Johners for 25% off. So thank you, Avantgarde, for giving us that promo code and giving us our followers and our listeners an opportunity to save some money at your next show on the 18th of March.
That's a bargain. I want to go.
There we go. So if you're in the Northeast, if you're in Newcastle, a great part of the country, go and sample a little bit of Feral on the 18th of March for Avantgarde. But some questions. Let's see. Ashley has been in touch. Ashley Clements, a big fan of Progress, travels around the country, big fan of the show here. How did you find your experience in WOS Wrestling, so World of Sport? And of course, they did the tapings over in Norwich in 2018, and I think they were on TV, on primetime TV, or nearly primetime, every single Saturday afternoon. But WOS Wrestling, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I know a lot of wrestling fans were a little bit critical of some of the editing, shall we say, but the action, the commentary from yourself, of course, and the roster was absolutely stacked. But and of course, you had a fantastic tour in 2019 as well. But give us your kind of experience, your highlights of working for WOS.
Well, I am Team WOS, and I'm laughing because I'm like, where is this thing? I know I have it in my office.
And it was right there.
So I'm very proud. It was like, do you have any WOS merch to sell? I'm like, no, I love it. I honestly, it was probably, other than Impact, it was the best thing I've ever done in my career, because I learned so much, because I found my own footing in commentary, in holding my own with two guys, in, just, I felt like I grew as a person too, and maybe it helped me, from being from a different country and like kind of speaking in my own way. And they were so encouraging for me to be me, like I said earlier. And it was just, the people we worked with were amazing. That roster is amazing. Everyone that was on WS is now either like super, super popular in the UK, Progress, or they're a WWE guy, or they're an AEW guy, or an Impact guy. It's just, that shows you the thing about the editing and whatever. I don't think they realize, and I totally got it, that our show was not for the indie underground crowd. And to be honest, I found that really, really refreshing. I liked that we were family oriented. I liked that it was a very good guy versus bad guy, and very easy to comprehend, easy to understand, easy to digest for perhaps a non-wrestling fan. And I loved that, because I thought that was kind of the coolest part of it, to be honest. But yeah, working with Stu, we still tweet back and forth about, like, if anyone ever asks me about commentary, I'm like, I got to work with Stu. Like, Stu's the best. And Stu's voice is so perfect in commentary. He's so like gruff, right? And I'll tell you a little funny story about Stu. So I said, oh my God, and and Stu, I met him backstage at WWE ages ago, and I was like, I feel like I know him because I know everyone who knows him, and vice versa. Just the nicest guy ever, just such a gentleman, he just carries himself, very regal guy. And I said to him, I was like, okay, so we have, I'm like, very bubbly and animated as usual. And like, we have this wrestler named like Crater, right? And I'm like, so what if you said, big like, guy. Big scary Crater, right? Yeah. And he's the heel commentator, the color commentator. And I was like, what if you said nobody's greater than Crater? And he was like, that's so dumb. I'm not saying that. And I was like, come on. So like, for the entirety of the show, you can you have to go back and watch. You can hear me. Sometimes Alex Shane, but mostly me going, so trying to bait him into doing it. So would you say anyone's better than Crater, Stu? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, and he wouldn't do it, and he wouldn't do it, and he wouldn't do it. And then like at the last, I think it was the last show, I'm like, please God. I don't know why it meant so much. I just was a personal pop for me. And he finally said, well, Val, nobody's greater. And his voice like, nobody's greater than Crater. And I had to push the button and I almost fell off my chair. And Alex is like, so just like little memories like that are so much fun. Listen, that was the for me, the fangirl moment to love people like Grado, who I already loved anyway. Joe Hendry.
Oh, amazing.
I mean, so many amazing people. We're just
Will Ospreay.
There's so many good people. Yeah. Kaylee Ray was phenomenal. I mean, there's so many great people. Piper Niven, you know, she's changed her name now. Viper, just so many amazing people. Nathan Cruz, oh my God, he and Joe Hendry. I mean, just Adam Maxted. These were, and I'll tell you what ITV did right is they picked everyone who looked and conducted themselves like stars. And that to me was very, very smart, how they cherry picked these wrestlers and they really made it this TV shiny, beautiful, sparkly package. And that's what I love about wrestling. Honestly, I love a little bit of hokey. I love a little bit of like tongue in cheek. And I thought they did it flawlessly. It was phenomenal. And and the tour that we did, similar to like I said about Progress, we did the tour and somebody was with me backstage where Justin Sizem, he was great too. He came out to save the day and I heard this big pop, mostly from the kids, right? And I looked at the guy that was in the back with me and I had tears in my eyes and I was about to go out. And I go, I love our show. And I wanted to be, because I just felt like, again, after Impact, I've done a lot of, you know, independence and I've had great moments. Evolve was great. But with that, I felt like I'm back in the game and I love what we're doing. So yeah, it was the best experience.
Absolutely. And another question that came through via Instagram from PE Gray 72. Your Toronto fans miss you. Okay, he misses you. When are you coming back to Toronto? Any plans to go over to Canada and maybe surprise the fans of Toronto, maybe with an appearance at a convention?
I wish, and I don't know when I have any plans to. Nothing in the cards yet. But I was just talking to someone about Toronto. I'm trying to think, one of the wrestlers actually. And I was saying, it was Olie Spring. And I said, I would live in Toronto. Like, I love Toronto so much. I love all of Canada. I did a lot of shows in Timmins, where I did most of my shows, but I would fly into Toronto. And actually there is where I got to do a lot of modeling shoots. And I got to book for myself and do like trade shoots and things like that. So no plans yet, but I love Toronto. I miss Toronto and I love it so much that I would live there. It's that fabulous.
Absolutely. And Alex Perez has been in touch watching us live via YouTube. So thank you, Alex. Really appreciate it. SoCal Val question. What was the most weirdest WrestleMania weekend event or story that you have? Do you have any weird and wonderful WrestleMania stories? I know you've been to one or two. You said that you started going to WrestleMania at a young age, but I'm sure you've been to a few since.
Yeah, you know what? I feel bad because I remember how many I've been to. I think it's like 9 or so. It's a lot. Which is, again, I feel bad because I'm like, people just, live their whole lives to go to one Mania. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's good Mania again. But I will say backstage wise, it must have been the first time I was a Rosebud, or I don't think they even ended up using us. It was in San Jose, California. I was there to do Evolve. And I don't think we did any. No, we didn't. I was backstage to be an extra. We got paid anyway. Thank you, WWE. We never did anything. But I think it was one of the first times I was backstage. And like, I kept saying like to people that I knew, because I saw everyone I knew, and I was freaking out. I was so nervous because it's not my territory. It's not like being backstage at TNA. This is to me the be all end all. Oh my God. And I call him Creed, Austin Creed, Xavier Woods. He was like, Val, you're being weird. And I was like, why? He's like, no, I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, why are you? He's like, you're even standing weird. And I was like, I don't know where to stand. Like, what do I do? He's like, should I lean here? He's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, dude, this is not, I'm like nervous. Like, I've never seen you like this. I'm like, well, I'm nervous. And the whole, and another time I went, also, like I said this, I don't know if I've told him in person. I feel like I probably should. On GAWTV, this will probably be revealed. Like, I knew everybody backstage that was like, for example, Ric Flair came in, Val, and everyone was like, how the hell does this girl know Ric Flair? If they didn't know me, they didn't know how the hell Ric Flair knew me. And I knew people like that, but like Aiden English, for example, I was a big fan of at NXT. Meeting him was scary. Ric Flair, not a big deal. But Aiden English,
wow,
I respect his work. I'm like, oh, Hogan, how are you? Hey, Val, how are you? Oh, good, everything's fine. But Aiden English, I was like, oh God. I will say the weirdest WrestleMania fan moment. I went to I don't want to bore you with the story. It was a very weird weekend. I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic I was given for tonsillitis. I used to lose my voice a lot ring announcing. And I had like a horrible rash. It was awful. I had to meet Linda McMahon at a party, like with like a collar up to here, like, hello. And I was all puffy. It was awful. And it was a weird weekend anyway. And that was the weekend in New Orleans where Undertaker lost the streak.
Yes.
And I was just tweeting about this because somebody said, oh, it was Denise Salcedo, who's phenomenal. If you have her YouTube channel, she was like, when we were there, if you were actually there in the building when that streak was lost, it was the weirdest, most awkward thing. And you can't describe it unless you were there. Like, people were pissed. It was a weird, like,
the place fell silent, didn't it? Absolutely silent. And
it felt like they put the wrong thing, that they counted wrong, or that it was a mistake.
There was a mistake. Yeah. A referee botch. Yeah.
Yeah, and we thought like, okay, and they were, it was very odd. And that sort of moment of that many people just all being confused at the same time was super, super awkward. And then it went from confusion to like you could hear a pin drop to then people were pissed. So that, to me, I will never forget that feeling. That was super weird. It was also great to see like certain things happen, like to see Finn Balor, come out at a WrestleMania. That was a huge deal. He's amazing. To see people that I know, like AJ and people, whether it's WrestleMania or like a whatever, I always cry every time.
Yeah, on the big, on the grandest stage of them all, as they say. And let's see, Jamie Dyer 3 has been in touch. When was the first year that you went to a Le Mans, and what were your first impressions like? So I know Jamie sent in a couple of questions, I think, but Le Mans, I didn't realize that you were a motor racing fan. Tell us a bit about it, and obviously you've been to Le Mans a few times.
I have. I can't promise that I'm a racing fan. Truthfully, my husband is very into it. Everyone he knows is a racing car driver or an engineer, all these things. So I love France, and I love
who doesn't? Let's be honest.
So that for that reason, it's awesome. It's a crazy spectacle. It's a lot of money. I'll tell you that much. The amount of money. It's like when I first went to NASCAR, I was like, oh, because wrestling has money, and people like, but these sports, like, it's like the women are all like, it is money. The good, like, I hate to say it, but I'm glad my husband likes a sport where it's like really fancy, because then I get to go like, oh, okay, honey, you go watch the racing. I'm gonna be at the champagne bar, and I'll speak a little bit of French for you now. This is what I say every time I'm there. I'll try to get it right. Désolé, je suis américain. Je ne comprends pas la Corse. Je suis ici pour l'avant. I probably botched that, but what I try to say to them, they go, oh, okay. It means when I order something, I'm sorry, I'm American. I don't understand the race. I'm here for the wine. So once they know that, because they ask me, who do you want to win? Who do you support? And I'm like, I support Côte de Rhône and Pinot Grigio. I don't know. So first impressions was happy that there was always a bar and shopping, and that it's in France. I can't say, I've met a lot of the amazing ones. Jamie will know these names, like Alex Albon's a good friend of ours. Gustavo Menezes, Andre Lauderer. I've met, there's a lot of connections there, and I almost appreciate that I'm not like an avid fan, because I can kind of meet them and just like them for who they are, not even realizing how big of a deal they are. I will say Patrick Dempsey I mark out for, because he's an actor, so I died when I saw him from afar. I haven't met him yet. And
Jamie sent us another question. Will you be supporting Jordan Taylor? I have to ask. So
he's American. He's from Orlando. He lives in Orlando. I'm supporting him. I'm supporting his dog Fonzie. And I'm supporting, what is it, Rodney Sandstorm? Am I saying it right? That's his alter ego. So, yes.
Fantastic. And a curious question for me. What does SoCal Val like to do in her downtime? Now, I know that I introduced you as one of the busiest women, one of the busiest people in the industry. Obviously, you came back from Manchester, Progress 149 yesterday in Manchester. But you're all over the country, flying to and from the UK to the States and everywhere in between. But when you've got a bit of downtime, what do you like to do? Do you have any other hobbies, any other interests, or things that you like to do when the camera's turned off, or you're not in front of a wrestling fandom, Progress, for example? Tell us what you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound super shallow, but like people go, oh, I don't, I switch off by doing this. I don't really switch off very well. I have little spurts of like watching silly things that are like Emily in Paris, huge, obsessed, diehard RuPaul's Drag Race fan. Real Housewife, and that's what I watch. I mean, primarily those two are always on. I would say travel's the biggest one, and honestly, always wanting to go to Europe. It's really cool living over here. I can flit off to Paris and go to Bruges. I love history. I love art history. I love anything that's kind of like from the Baroque or Gothic eras. I love going to the Louvre when I was in Paris was like I cried. Like I love art. And when I go to London, I love the V&A. That's probably my favorite one. I love architecture. I've always loved studying British monarchy, which really helped me in my life in the UK test. especially the Henrician period, the Tudors. Henry VIII is, I've studied zillions of things about him. I love the crown, love the monarchy. Yeah, so a lot of that history stuff. I love paleontology. A lot of stuff people don't realize that I actually really like studying.
Yeah.
And obviously fashion, I know it sounds silly, but fashion is like that's my jam. And I've thought about going more into fashion, but I do technically worry, and I still go to Fashion Week and things like that. But I do technically worry that if fashion was my job, it would start to feel like a job, whereas fashion's kind of my escape. I know it sounds silly, but like, you know, reading a fashion magazine or learning about a designer, watching a documentary about a designer, how they came up. I just read a fabulous article about Ralph Lauren and how he had such tenacity in his career and he's so humble, it seems like. By the way, it's Ralph Lauren, not Lauren, for people wanting to keep score at home.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he's from the Bronx.
Never knew that.
He named his name is Ralph Lifshitz, and he actually named himself Ralph Lauren after Lauren Bacall. So let's stop calling him Ralph Lauren. Anyway, you know, fashion's a big deal to me. That's something I really love and I get emotional about. Like I watch a runway show and I go, oh, because it's art. Yeah, and travel's a big one for me. Any chance I can get away, like during COVID, I was losing my mind. I'm going to Brussels and Bruges and all this stuff soon. I travel, even when my husband's working, I travel by myself. I took myself to Madrid. I like to learn about different cultures. Yeah, that's a big one.
Well, before we ask you for your socials, SoCal Val, I need to remind my audience out there who my next live guest is on Wrestling with Johners. And you probably know this individual very well, but we've got the live bird, Lizzie Evo, coming onto the show this Thursday, as a matter of fact. So the 16th of February, 8 p.m. live. You're going to want to hear what Lizzie has to say. One of the best pro wrestlers in the UK, full stop, at the moment, doing tremendous things. And her career just seems to be getting better and better and better. So I can't wait to speak to Lizzie this Thursday. So if you aren't already, throw us a follow, throw us a subscribe to get all the updates and to make sure that you don't miss out on interviews like this one here with SoCal Val and like Thursday's interview with Lizzie Evo. But Val, it's been amazing speaking to you for nearly an hour and a half. I'm going to ask you for your socials now, and if it helps, I'm going to bring up a little ticker that will be running along the bottom of the screen. But where can we reach out to you? Where can we say hi? Where can we get to learn more about SoCal Val?
I love that. Well, I will say to you quickly that Lizzie Evo, please give her my love and regards. I am one of her biggest fans. She's at the top of her game now. She's a babe, a boss babe, and happens to just so happen to be a lovely person as well. I'm a huge fan of hers. But yeah, I'm very active on social media at official SoCal Val on Instagram, at SoCal Valerie on Twitter. I don't answer my DMs on things like that. I do have a store at SoCal Val store, autographed merchandise, event worn outfits, and listen, I have to keep those outfits rotating, and my shoes, as you can see. Everything rotating. So that's, I'm very much into my store and providing people with an ability to shop my closet. But onlyfans.com/SoCalVal, that's really where all of my, my exclusive photo shoots, my exclusive videos. I do a lot of video updates during my travels, and you can DM with me, which I think sometimes people join and they go, oh, she's not going to answer me. I love talking back and forth with everybody, because that way, if they're supporting me, it's so nice to kind of go, where are you from? What are your interests? There's so many people that I've met from all over the world. So it's the most interactive way to follow me and kind of see what I'm doing that I don't publish anywhere but OnlyFans. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Honestly, I have the nicest fans there. It's a drop in the bucket when it's someone that's, because I hear certain stories about OnlyFans, certain stigmas. Mine is, never nudity, but, some sexy photo shoots, but really just getting to know me and pulling back that curtain and getting to meet me, kind of virtually. So I'd love to see you there.
Absolutely. And just to bring up some pictures, obviously your banner there for your website, and of course some of the fabulous merchandise that you can get on there as well. And you've got your store as well that you mentioned on Twitter and Instagram, SoCal Val Store. Some wonderful merchandise there. And of course, just support Gore TV, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, and of course the website there. But Val, it's been amazing to speak to you. It's been a bit of a bucket list interview for me, getting to know you a little bit better, getting to hear your story and your journey. But if you've got one final parting message, one final message for your fans at home, for your friends, for your followers, or for anybody that wants to get to know you better, what's your parting message for your fans at home?
Well, thank you. The last plug I will say, because I mentioned my own socials, but yeah, Grown Ass Women TV, GAWTV.com. Find us on YouTube. It's a great thing with myself, Mickie James, Lisa Marie Veron, who you know is Victoria and Tara. We're on every week, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching the UK, that's 10 p.m. for us. It's really a labor of love, and it's the most exciting part of my week. But for me, I mean, anyone that's watching, I just want to say thank you for supporting me. Thank you for supporting Progress. Lots to come there. Please look up that Wrestle Tours amazing package. I'd love to see you in my old stomping grounds in Hollywood, in LA. But I mean, I think we talked about, you know, being a fan. So I just want to say, don't ever apologize for being a fan and liking what you like. I think some people get competitive. They get caught up in, oh, I don't watch WWE. I don't watch this. You like what you like, and you need to be, you know, you be you and like what you like. And don't ever apologize for being a fan or loving what you love in any aspect, or loving who you love.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. But SoCal Val, thank you so much for being a tremendous guest, and see you at the shows.
See you soon. Thank you.